Mersu Landia says Snow White versus Little Mermaid, which is the bigger flop? If we're going to gauge flop by a profit and loss statement, then I would have to say Snow White. Because, as we've mentioned before, I am unaware, personally, I don't recall, somebody else may recall some stories about this, but I don't. I am unaware that The Little Mermaid, the 2023 live-action remake, had any significant reshoots. Again, we always try to educate the audience to delineate between normal reshoots, which are not really reshoots. They're sometimes colloquially referred to as a pickup shoot. There's something that's budgeted in with the original principal photography where everybody has to be on standby. If we've got to come back for a couple of 2 or 3 weeks to redo a couple of shots that got screwed up, the file got corrupted, they didn't like the lighting in this, they want to make a slight change to a line or the way it was delivered in this one scene that was very important for the movie or something along those lines. I've had friends that have worked in movie production here in New Orleans over the years, and pickup shoots are not uncommon. What we're talking about here is a major overhaul. Like, we shot the movie, we finished principal photography, we strapped it together, we did a lot of post-production, VFX, all this kind of stuff, stuck it in front of a test screening audience, and it bombed. And then we had to go back and make major changes to the script, rewriting entire acts, or in some cases the whole film, and then reshooting giant sections of the film, or nearly the whole film. That's a completely different animal. And that is, by all accounts, what seemed to have happened with Snow White, because if it didn't, then why didn't it release last year in March or April when it was originally slated to? They pushed it back an entire year, using the guise of the actor strike and the writer strike to push it back. But they made that announcement in around October of 2023. And the strike ended in November. They would have had all of the cast there available to do the press tours and the press junkets for that film had they released it on time. But they elected to defer it an entire year at that point. Why? Because Disney had to go back to the drawing board and make massive changes that cost a buttload of money. That's why. So Snow White. Hillis Mallory for 5 as we continue down the road of the financial lens of reality. That's what we do here on Valiant Renegade. Good call, Hillis. Do you have a financial analysis for Sonic 3? Are we talking about the box office performance? It wasn't spectacular, but then again, Sonic 3, and I think we talked about this maybe a month ago. It wasn't spectacular, but the differences with Sonic is that that's co-produced by the license holders and Paramount. It's a different kind of animal. Plus, it's got a good shelf life on streaming. Paramount will probably license that out to third parties like a Netflix or an Amazon over time. So did it turn a big profit in the theater? No, I'd have to go back and look it up because right now I'm trying to remember. But the thing with Sonic is they don't spend $250 to $300 million making it. Sonic 3, I think they spent, what was it, 100, 120 maybe? Around 120, I think it was. So I've got to go back and check and see. But I think Paramount will be just fine with the performance of it because it also engenders some merchandise sales from it. Not huge numbers, but enough to justify the continued production of the film. The difference with Disney is that when they make a film like that, they spend quite literally twice as much as everybody else to make the same movie, and then they have usually a much bigger, more boisterous marketing campaign, which costs more money. And then it goes to Disney Plus after the theater and dies. Disney just pays itself for its own property. So there's no real external revenue coming in to make it up. And we're going to talk about some of that tonight because basically Hollywood is being all but replaced entirely by Netflix. And that can be a good or bad thing depending on how you look at it. I know, it sounds crazy. I'll talk about why because you know I'm a huge physical media fan and a huge supporter of theatrical exhibition. But I'm hoping that the fact that Netflix continues to be more and more successful at what they do, that it is going to force a radical change in Hollywood with the films that they decide to create, number one, how they create them, the money they spend, and being more judicious. Because again, at the end of the day, these Hollywood companies out there, these studios are all publicly traded entities like Disney, which ain't doing so hot right now. And again, that's probably going to come up this Thursday. We'll see. Good to see you, my friend. Tennessee Tornado for 5. If Snow White falls in the forest and no one is there to see it, do the dwarves split her paycheck? Or just eat her like they're cats? It's a morbid thought, but it's a valid question. Make sure you're subscribed to Valiant Renegade and join us every Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern for the live show.